You don't notice him at first because he isn't trying to be noticed. He's there late at night, scrolling quietly through his phone while the rest of the world sleeps. He watches stories all the way through. He sees the vacations, the gym progress, the engagement announcements, the carefully chosen angles and captions. He knows who broke up, who leveled up, who's pretending everything is fine. He's present for all of it. But when you tap his profile, there's almost nothing there. No recent photos, no updates, maybe one old post from years ago, something forgettable, a blurry sky, a random picture that feels more like an accident than a statement. And it makes you pause. Because in a world where everyone is documenting themselves, this absence feels loud. You start wondering who he really is. Is he hiding something? Is he private by nature or just disconnected? Is he uninterested, insecure, disciplined, detached, or simply uninterested in being seen? And more importantly, is this silence a sign of strength, or a sign of something unresolved beneath the surface? What makes this man fascinating isn't that he avoids attention. It's that he exists right on the edge of it. He's not offline. He hasn't disappeared. He hasn't rejected the digital world entirely. He's still watching, still consuming, still aware. He's just chosen not to leave a trace. And that choice feels intentional, deliberate, almost calculated, because staying silent in a culture that rewards visibility takes effort. It requires restraint. It requires a decision to remain unseen while everyone else is competing to be noticed. This isn't a man who doesn't know how social media works. This is a man who understands it well enough to step back from it. And the question isn't whether something is wrong with him. The real question is why this kind of man is becoming harder to ignore, and more common than anyone wants to admit. Because once you start paying attention, you realize he's not alone. Once you start noticing men like this, you realize something important. They are not rare anymore. Look around at the men in your life. Your brother, your partner, your coworkers, your friends from school. Compare how often they post to the women you know. The difference is hard to ignore. While many women share moments from their lives openly and consistently, more and more men are going quiet. They are still on the platforms, still scrolling, still watching, but they are no longer contributing the way they used to. This isn't because men suddenly forgot how social media works. It's not because they are lazy, disconnected, or antisocial. What's happening is more intentional than that. Many men are slowly pulling back, not disappearing, but choosing distance. They are present without being visible. And this isn't about blaming one group or praising another. Men and women experience social media differently, and they always have. What matters here is the shift. A noticeable number of men are deciding that posting no longer feels necessary, natural, or even worthwhile to them. For some, it starts quietly. They post less. Then they stop commenting. Then months go by without sharing anything at all. No announcement. No explanation. Just silence. And over time, that silence becomes normal, both to them and to the people watching from the outside. What we're seeing isn't avoidance for the sake of avoidance. It's a response. A reaction to the way social media has changed, and to the way being visible online now feels different than it once did. And to understand why so many men are stepping back at the same time, you first have to understand what social media is really asking from them. To understand why social media feels uncomfortable for so many men, you have to look at how the system actually works. At its core, social media runs on validation. Likes, comments, shares, views, and followers are the rewards. The more attention something gets, the more valuable it's considered to be. Over time, this turns attention into a kind of currency. You post something, you wait, and the response tells you how well you performed. For a lot of people, this feels normal, even enjoyable. It creates connection, feedback, and a sense of being seen. But for many men, this setup feels strange, even draining, because they were raised with a very different idea of how worth is supposed to work. Most men grow up being taught, directly or indirectly, that their value comes from what they do, not from how they present themselves. You work. You build. You improve. You let results speak for you. You don't stand in front of a crowd and ask to be applauded. You're supposed to earn respect quietly. So when social media asks a man to post a photo, write a caption, and wait for approval, something inside him resists. It can feel like he's being asked to advertise himself instead of just living his life, to perform instead of produce, to explain his worth instead of proving it through action. This doesn't mean he doesn't want recognition. It means this form of recognition feels shallow to him, temporary, dependent on numbers that can rise or fall for reasons he doesn't control. One post does well, another goes unnoticed, and suddenly his sense of value feels tied to an algorithm. For some men, that feels hollow. It feels like playing a game where the rules keep changing and the rewards don't mean much once you step away from the screen. And instead of fully buying into that system, many of them start adjusting their behavior in quieter ways. For many men who avoid posting, watching becomes their default mode. They scroll, they observe, they take in every story, every post, every moment of other people's lives, but they rarely step into the frame themselves. For them, watching feels safer than performing. It allows them to be present without risking judgment, criticism, or embarrassment. This isn't laziness or indifference. It's learned behavior. From a young age, many of these men grew up in environments where attention could be dangerous. Maybe speaking up invited ridicule. Maybe showing weakness invited conflict. Maybe drawing attention to yourself created competition or criticism. Over time, they learned that silence could be protective. Watching quietly became a skill. Observing allowed them to gather information, understand patterns, and figure out how the world works without exposing themselves to unnecessary risk. They became analysts instead of actors, listeners instead of performers. And this ability to observe is powerful. It's not a weakness. It's intelligence. By watching, they notice details others miss. They see trends, behaviors, and outcomes before anyone else does. They understand the stakes, the dynamics, and the subtle rules of social interaction without having to test them on themselves. But there's a cost. The more they watch, the less they participate. The more they analyze, the less they share. And while observation can make them wise, it also slowly separates them from the very world they're trying to understand. The more he watches, the more he knows about everyone else. He remembers birthdays, notices subtle changes in behavior, sees who's struggling and who's thriving. He understands what's happening in the lives of friends, co-workers, and acquaintances, often better than they understand him. But while he knows so much about others, almost no one knows anything about him. His own experiences, his own thoughts, his own life, they remain invisible. He can describe the highlights of other people's weeks, the vacations they took, the arguments they had, but if someone asked him how he's really doing, the answer would be unclear. This creates a strange tension. On one hand, he feels comfort in his invisibility. He doesn't have to explain himself, perform for others, or risk criticism. On the other hand, he feels the quiet sting of isolation. There's a difference between choosing privacy and being unseen, and over time, that difference can blur. His silence slowly separates him from the world. Invitations are missed, inside jokes pass by, social bonds weaken, and eventually, even the closest friends may forget to include him. He becomes what some would call digitally ghosted, present but only on the surface, watching, consuming, understanding, but never fully participating. And while this silence feels safe, it also builds a kind of invisible wall. It protects him from judgment, but it also keeps meaningful connections just out of reach. The truth is, most men who don't post aren't silent because they don't care. They are silent because they are afraid. They are afraid of judgment, of criticism, of being misunderstood, and even of being ignored. Every post, every photo, every caption feels like putting a piece of themselves out into the world, fully exposed, for anyone to evaluate. Posting online isn't just sharing a moment, it's an invitation to be measured against everyone else. And for someone who has learned to protect themselves, that kind of exposure can feel dangerous. Silence becomes a shield. It's a way to stay safe, to control what others see, and to avoid the risk of being knocked down by opinions that don't matter, or worse, that sting too much. In many ways, choosing not to post can feel like control. He doesn't have to worry about how people will react. He doesn't have to watch the likes trickle in or the comments roll past. He doesn't have to perform for approval. By staying silent, he controls the narrative, or at least, the parts of it that are visible to others. But even with all that control, there's an undercurrent of tension. Watching everyone else's lives while keeping his own hidden can be exhausting. It can stir questions he doesn't want to ask himself. Am I hiding because I need to, or am I hiding because I'm afraid? That fear is always there, quietly shaping the choices he makes online. And that fear is only magnified when he starts comparing himself to others. Part of the reason he doesn't post is because he's always measuring himself against everyone else. He scrolls past gym photos, promotions at work, vacation shots, perfect relationships, and feels the quiet pressure of comparison. It's not jealousy, it's awareness. He sees the highlights of other people's lives and unconsciously asks himself if his own is worthy of being shared. That's why the "I'll post when I'm ready" mentality takes hold. He tells himself he'll share his life once he's achieved something impressive, once he's interesting enough, once he's transformed into the version of himself that deserves to be seen. And for a while, that promise feels reasonable. It feels safe. But the truth is that day almost never comes. Life rarely waits for perfection. There is always a new standard to meet, a new comparison to measure against, a new highlight reel that makes him feel behind. So the post is delayed again, and again, and again. Posting becomes something that exists in the future, always just out of reach. This delay isn't laziness. It's a form of self-protection. By waiting, he avoids the possibility of criticism, rejection, or embarrassment. He avoids the discomfort of putting himself out there before he feels ready. And while it keeps him safe, it also keeps him silent, invisible, unknown. Over time, this habit becomes a kind of philosophy. He begins to see social media itself as shallow, performative, and unnecessary. The pressure, the comparison, the constant measurement of worth through likes and comments, all of it starts to feel meaningless. And that's when silence stops being just a protective measure and becomes a deliberate rejection. The longer he stays quiet, the more he notices something else. Social media asks him to be authentic, but in a way that feels impossible. He is told to be yourself, to share his life honestly, to show the real him. Yet every post requires curation. Every photo needs a filter. Every caption takes thought, polish, and timing. Even honesty becomes a performance. For many men, that feels dishonest. He doesn't want to perform, and he doesn't want the approval of strangers to define him. He sees people carefully constructing versions of themselves, real enough to seem genuine, but polished enough to impress, and it feels like a contradiction in terms. How can you be authentic if every move is measured? Silence, on the other hand, feels cleaner. There's no need to explain, to justify, or to wait for validation. By posting nothing, he avoids the trap of performative authenticity. Not sharing becomes a moral choice, a way to stay true to himself without compromise. But even this feels complicated. The very act of staying silent, of choosing not to participate, becomes a statement in itself. It's not neutral. In trying to reject performance, he is performing something else, a philosophy, a boundary, a persona. And that realization brings a new kind of tension. The quiet, controlled silence that once felt natural now starts to feel like another layer of performance. Over time, his silence starts to mean something. It isn't just avoidance anymore, it becomes a part of who he is. People notice that he doesn't post, that he doesn't comment, that he doesn't share. And in that absence, he becomes something more than invisible. He becomes mysterious, private, unreadable. This mysterious persona can be powerful. Others are drawn to it, curious about what he's thinking, wondering why he doesn't show himself the way everyone else does. Friends respect his boundaries. Women notice his distance. In a world that rewards oversharing, being unseen becomes its own kind of magnetism. But there's a downside. Mystery attracts curiosity, but it also limits connection. By not sharing, he keeps people at arm's length, and even the closest relationships can feel distant. Invitations, inside jokes, and opportunities can slip by because he isn't fully participating in the visible social world. Part of why he stays silent is control. Posting means giving up a piece of himself, letting others interpret it, judge it, or misuse it. By staying absent, he controls what people know, what they see, and how they perceive him. In a sense, his silence is a shield. It protects him, but it also keeps him isolated. And that tension, the pull between curiosity and connection, between control and openness, is what shapes the next stage of his experience. Being invisible has a price. In his relationships, it can create misunderstandings. A partner might post photos together, share moments, or celebrate their connection online, while he stays silent. She begins to wonder why he won't show her to the world, why he doesn't reciprocate, and whether his silence means he's hiding something, or worse, hiding from her. Socially, the cost is subtle but real. Group chats, events, inside jokes, they happen without him. Invitations get lost, conversations move on, and slowly, even friends who care start to forget to include him. His absence isn't noticed at first, but over time it becomes a gap that's hard to close. Professionally, invisibility can be limiting as well. In a world where opportunities often come from networks and visibility, staying quiet online can mean being overlooked. His talents, his achievements, even his ideas may go unnoticed because he isn't sharing them where others can see. And yet, he often convinces himself it's worth it. Privacy feels safe. Control feels like strength. Staying unseen feels like protecting himself from unnecessary scrutiny. But the question lingers. Is the comfort of invisibility really worth the connections he misses, the moments he can't share, or the opportunities that pass by unnoticed? There's no easy answer. The cost is real, but whether it outweighs the benefits depends on perspective and on choice. Because in the end, silence is a choice. At the end of the day, there is no judgment here. Choosing not to post doesn't make a man weak, and posting doesn't make him brave. What matters is intention. Some men remain silent because they value privacy. They've weighed the costs and benefits, and they are confident in their decision. Their absence is conscious, controlled, and aligned with who they are. Others stay silent for different reasons. Fear of judgment, comparison, or rejection can shape the choice without them even realizing it. Silence in this case isn't freedom. It's a kind of protection that comes at a cost. The important question isn't whether silence is good or bad. It's whether the silence is truly chosen. Are you controlling your presence, or is the platform controlling you? Are you staying invisible because it serves you, or because it shields you from a fear you haven't faced? There is no one answer. Some men will never feel comfortable sharing online, and that is perfectly fine. Others might discover that letting themselves be seen, even a little, opens doors to connection, understanding, or opportunities they didn't realize they were missing. So take a moment to ask yourself, what am I protecting by staying quiet? What am I missing by hiding? And what would happen if I allowed myself to be seen, even just a little? Your silence is your choice. Make sure it truly is. If this resonates with you, leave a comment. Tell me, are you the silent observer, or are you sharing your life openly? What holds you back, and what pushes you forward? Let's start that conversation, because understanding the reasons behind our silence is the first step toward understanding ourselves.